Hello everyone, and welcome back to the next installment of our 10.1 raid guides, proudly presented by Kingston FURY. This is Crzypck from Method, and today we'll show you how to defeat Neltharion in Heroic Aberrus. The Echo of Neltharion is a 3-phase encounter with a brief intermission between phases 1 and 2. This fight is a fair bit longer and more complicated than the first 7, but it's a really fun fight. There's a group of related mechanics that'll carry through the entire fight and are central to managing properly. A few seconds after the fight begins, Neltharion will create a whole bunch of lines of red swirlies. Don't stand in them, they explode, and then they'll also spawn a bunch of rock walls in a set formation around the room. This will split the room into 5 areas, with 4 around the edges and 1 in the middle. The walls are line of sight blockers and you can't get through them. Managing these walls is a vital part of the encounter. You'll need to use 2 other mechanics properly to temporarily break walls as needed. Rushing Darkness will put an arrow over the head of a couple of random players. After a few seconds, they'll get blasted with shadow beams, which hurt and knock them back. Anyone other than the targets that gets hit is also silenced for 3 seconds, so don't stand in this. If you get knocked back into the rock wall itself, it'll shatter and create an opening. The second way to break walls is the tank smack called Calamitous Strike. This deals heavy physical damage to the tank, increases physical damage taken by 200% for 40 seconds, and knocks the tank back. Like the Rushing Darkness knockback, getting hit into the wall will shatter that section. Now, you do need to be pretty careful shattering walls. Each section that gets shattered applies 1 stack of a 14-second dot to everyone in the raid that ticks for 20,000 damage per second per stack. You can also be knocked through multiple sections at once, which can easily put 5 or 6 stacks of the debuff on everybody. Every time you get a new stack of this, it'll refresh the duration of your dot, which can make a bad situation even worse. Aside from the dot, about 15 seconds after a wall is shattered, the red swirlies will reappear and then respawn the wall. You'll have walls in all 3 phases with slightly different formations each time. Aside from the walls, there's a few other things going on in phase 1. Volcanic Heart will put large red circles on a few random people that explode after 7 seconds. Anyone standing in the circle, other than the target, takes massive and probably lethal damage. Echoing Fissure will put a massive circle around Neltharion himself that explodes after 5 seconds. Anyone standing in the explosion will take 1.2 million damage, which is a lot more health than you have. The explosion will also deal mild damage to everyone who didn't have a death wish. The circle then fills with lava. Lava's hot, it burns you, don't stand in it. The lava will persist for all of phase 1, and it'll actually expand to be larger than just the circle itself. During all of this, you also have small swirlies periodically, so dodge those. This sounds like a lot, but it's actually fairly simple to deal with. You'll want to start phase 1 by dragging the boss towards the edge of the room. When the walls spawn, you'll want to bring him to the furthest corner of the area that you're in. Both Rushing Darkness and Calamitous Strike targets should be knocked to the edges of the room, not into the breakable walls unless absolutely necessary. Players with Volcanic Heart need to spread out, and everyone needs to make sure they're out of the circles. The first Echoing Fissure comes out at about 32 seconds into the fight, so make sure the boss is as far into the corner as possible for that, run out of the circle, and then keep moving away so you're out of the lava. After the first fissure happens, you should actually stay in that section of the room for a little bit longer. At about the 1 minute mark, you should use Calamitous Strike to shatter the wall and open a path into the next area. Keep Neltharion where he is though, dragging him as close to the existing lava as possible. The second Echoing Fissure comes out at 1 minute and 8 seconds. When this starts, everyone should run through the opening and get away from the circle. From here, break wall as soon as possible and move into a new, completely clean area, as the lava will fill up most of this second section of the room. Keep moving around like this until the boss reaches 60% health, at which point the boss will cast Raise the Earth, clearing all lava and beginning the intermission. During the intermission, the boss will cast Surrender to Corruption. This cast deals mild ticking damage to the raid, with a bigger pulse of damage to everybody when it ends. As this is happening, all existing walls will explode and disappear, with a new set of red swirlies coming out and spawning new walls in a new formation. When the cast completes, phase 2 begins. Volcanic Heart and Rushing Darkness will carry over into Phase 2, so handle them exactly like you did in Phase 1. You'll also get a few new mechanics to deal with. Crumbling Facade periodically spawns a bunch of little swirlies, so don't get hit by these. Umbral Annihilation is a raid-wide AoE cast by the boss that deals about 100,000 damage to everybody, but increases damage taken by subsequent casts by 100%. The tank smack for this phase is also altered a little bit, and is now called Sunder's Shadow, which is a two-part ability. The first part deals heavy physical damage, and actually knocks the tank's shadow out of their body. When this happens, the affected tank will control the shadow instead, not their physical body, but the shadow can walk through walls, and their physical body will stay where it is. This is important because the second piece of this mechanic, called Shadow Strike, will punch the tank's body back towards wherever the shadow is. If the body hits a wall from this knockback, it'll shatter the wall and open a path for the raid. You'll need a tank swap after each of these, as it also applies a 300% increased damage taken debuff for 40 seconds. The last group of mechanics for Phase 2 is the fun set. 3 Voice from Beyond ads spawn around the room, each in a different section. These are not targetable, but have a small shield and apply a buff to the boss that prevents him from falling below 35% health. Several random players will get corrupted by Neltharion, turning them hostile to the rest of the raid, but also allowing them to attack the ads. Once these players break the shield, the corruption breaks, the players stop being hostile, and the ad becomes attackable by everybody else. The flow of Phase 2 is pretty straightforward. The entire raid should stay close together, near an edge of the room, ensuring you'll all be within the same area of the walls when they spawn. Tanks should make sure not to have the boss on top of the ad. When corruption goes out, the affected players have to blast a shield on the ad as quickly as possible. Everyone else needs to be careful not to accidentally kill your friends. Intentionally stunning your friends with leg sweep and then killing them, like my tank did to me, is also not okay. It was definitely funny, but please don't do that. As soon as the shield falls, the tank should drag Neltharion on top of it for cleave, and all DPS need to hard swap. The tanks should use the Sunder's Shadow to break a wall while the ad is being killed if possible. If not, use Rushing Darkness to shatter a hole instead. Anytime Rushing Darkness isn't needed to shatter a wall, shoot it towards the edge of the room. You'll do this 3 times, going around the room and killing all 3 ads. Remember, Volcanic Heart keeps coming during Phase 2, so ensure folks are moving away from that. Note for the healers. The Umbral Annihilation gets really nasty really fast. You'll want a cooldown for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th casts of this, prioritizing damage reduction cooldowns for the later ones. You may also want to use things like Rally and player personal defensives on the 4th Annihilation to help ensure you don't lose anyone. When the 3rd ad dies, you'll begin Phase 3. As Phase 3 starts, all existing walls despawn and a new layout of walls forms in their place. Rushing Darkness and Calamitous Strike both continue being used in Phase 3, so you'll handle them like you were in Phase 1, always being knocked back into the edge of the room and never breaking a wall. Aside from these, there's some new mechanics for the phase. The boss periodically casts Sunder Reality, which will break several sections of walls near him. Don't stand near the walls when this happens, they explode within 5 yards and hurt you. Each section of wall will leave behind a blue portal on the ground. The portals periodically spawn some little twisted aberration ads, which buff themselves every 2 seconds until they die. Lastly, the boss periodically casts Ebon Destruction, dealing 2 million damage to everybody in the raid and applying a heavy dot for 15 seconds. Obviously, you don't have 2 million health, so this is pretty bad. Fortunately, standing in a portal reduces damage taken by Ebon Destruction by 99%, making it livable. As an added benefit, standing in a portal during the destruction will also remove that portal, meaning it can't keep spawning ads, which is also a really good thing. Phase 3 basically becomes a dance and a DPS race. When the phase starts, Neltharion will cast his first Sunder Reality, spawning a bunch of portals and ads. Nuke the ads quickly, or they'll get really thick really quickly and stomp all over your tanks. When he starts casting Ebon Destruction, every player needs to stand in a portal. You should try to be in your own portal by yourself and not have multiple people stacked in a single one, so you remove as many of them as possible, which will reduce the number of adds coming at you. Shoot the rushing darkness to the edge of the room, and tanks keep swapping for a calamitous strike. Keep repeating this until the boss finally falls over. GG's, on to the last boss. If you enjoyed this guide, remember to like it and make sure you're subscribed to the channel to catch all of our previews, guides, kill videos, and more. A big thank you again to Kingston FURY for making guides like these possible. From everyone here at Method, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.